Hi, everybody, and welcome to Traveller Mayday, Mayday 2026. I'm your host, Frank Succardi from CyborgPrime Games, and today I'm chatting with my friends Ken Burnside, Matthew Francois, John Ziegler, and Jess Miller Camp. Welcome, everybody. They're
Thank
from
you for
Ad
being here.
Astra Games, and they produce some cool products along with some Traveller licensed stuff, which they will tell you about during the interview. So let's just go around the table real fast. Everybody briefly introduce themselves and what they have to do with Ad Astra and space combat and whatnot. Um, let's start with Ken.
So I am the founder and generally the only full-time employee of Ad Astra Games. I like to say that Ad Astra Games is a one human supervised by one cat game publisher. We are primarily known for making three-dimensional spaceship combat games. We have a Traveller version of one of them called Squadron Strike Traveller. And of other interest, the things that we've done for Traveller, we put together a book called Architect of Worlds, written by John Ziegler, that got published 2 years ago and is still selling well and is of a great deal of interest to anybody who is looking for a way to build planets that's a little bit more realistic than what you got in the 40-year-old Traveller Little Black Books.
All right. All right. Matthew, why don't you introduce yourself next?
Hi, Matthew Francois. I am the line developer for Attack Vector Tactical, which is published by Ad Astra Games, created by Ken. One of the hardest sci-fi tabletop experiences you can get out there. Lots of Newtonian physics, lots of cooling, lots of mass calculations. Associated with that, we also have a fully realized sci-fi expanse of worlds, 10 habitable worlds outside of Earth that we tried to follow as much hard science there as we could to create them.
Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome. And John, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay.
What do you have to do with that, Astra?
Yeah, well, I'm John Ziegler. Back in the day, I was a pretty frequent GURPS author and editor. And in fact, I was the assistant line editor for GURPS Traveller for a number of years, working with Warren Wiseman. Most recently, I wrote Architect of Worlds, which is probably the fourth or fifth game-oriented world design system I've written over my time, depending on how you count. And we're currently working on some new projects that we'll talk about. So.
Oh, cool. All right. Welcome back. And Jess Miller Camp, welcome to you. You're new to Mayday. Why don't you tell us how you're connected with Ad Astra?
Ken found me at Origins, or leading up to Origins last year, because I am Drew GM Designs is my business. It's all about bringing nature to the tabletop. And I had run some Pathfinder games online that Ken was in. And we got to talking about one of the classes I teach, which is, hello, Tali, which is all about how to use Earth system science to build a planetary wide map of biomes. So biology, geology, hydrology, and atmospheric sciences. And Ken was like, wow, you know what? I've actually been looking to have a book written about that. We should talk.
Awesome.
So we got to talking, met up at Origins, and now I'm working on the project with him and John for a current book, and we'll be working on a second book based off of the stuff that he reached out to me about.
Awesome. Well, welcome. There's something to be said for networking. So let's start with, we'll have Ken kind of lead us through. Ken, what have you been up to since last Mayday?
So since last Mayday, we finally got Attack Vector 3rd Edition out the door, largely through the efforts of Matt Francois over here. The original plan was that it was going to grow by about 20% in the word page count, and it ended up being exactly the same, the exact same page count. We fixed we fixed a few math errors that were deep down in the ship design system. We more thoroughly rigorized the process by which we design ships and make class histories for them. And Matt and I are in the process of eagerly looking at my inbox to see if Charles Owens has sent the next piece of art for finishing off Attack Vector Ship Book 2. And by the time Mayday rolls around, we should be selling that already.
Cool. Matthew, what was like the hardest thing about putting out the new edition?
The hardest thing was probably the digital archaeology. If you're not familiar with how things work in technology, and I'm sure we all are, things break. The painstaking macros you wrote in Microsoft Excel 20 years ago may not even work anymore. There were countless piles of files, of message board posts, of emails that myself and a couple other people on the development team dove into to somewhat reverse engineer all the systems that were there. In the process, finding where those errors had cropped in, where those assumptions came in, and working through it to get results that weren't vastly different. One of the things was we shouldn't have been totally wrong, but there were things where some things slightly changed.
That must have been challenging to root those things out.
Yeah. So when you're looking at a 20-year-old spreadsheet that literally takes minutes to open, while that warms the cockles of Ken's heart, it's not exactly useful when you need to use that same spreadsheet to create 30 different starships.
All right,
I will
cool.
point out, Matt, that we probably want to save more details on that for the next set of interviews that we're going to do. Yep. Among the details that changed, we found out that one of our habitable planets has an extra star in the system.
I was going to get to that if you came to me. One of the side projects that's really related to what we're talking about today is I've been trying to, and I'll make John blush a little bit here. I've been using John's system creation tools for 20, 30 years. I have a well-worn copy of GURPS First In, for example, on my shelf. And the opportunity to start taking the 10 worlds, which I said 20 years ago were built with as much hard science as we could, taking those and putting them through the Architect of Worlds system that John put together was a two-pronged treat for me. One, I was getting to work with somebody that, I've been reading his stuff for all these years. It was so exciting. And two, it was a nice test of the rigor of the system. But there were problems that popped up. One of the first systems that we tried to tackle was our system around Alpha Mensi. When Alpha Mensi was initially created and the habitable world placed around it for our 10-world setting, we didn't know that Alpha Mensi had a companion star. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I'm very excited about this setting and the hard sci-fi around it, is the fact that we know stuff about the world and the universe today that they didn't know when they created this setting 20 years ago.
Right.
And to the credit of Architect of Worlds, which is really exciting as well, there was only a couple of places where we had to make any sort of a significant change, which not only shows that our foundation was solid, but is exciting that you can take Architect of Worlds, take a real star that has actual, ESA and NASA observations, and build something plausible around it.
Yeah, that's cool. So I see that you have an abbreviated architect.
Back when I was designing Architect of Worlds, I think as far back as 2020, because that project took a long time to come to fruition. At one point, I decided, I don't even remember the reasoning at the time. Okay, Architect is cool. Architect has a lot of good real-world science behind it. It's a little heavy. So could we possibly take some of what I was learning about planetary science and whatnot and building into Architect of Worlds and create a nice short world design sequence that would be compatible with most versions of Traveller. And with the understanding that in order to do that, I'd be simplifying a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out that wasn't all that difficult. I ended up with a couple of big lookup tables so that instead of just rolling 2 dice -2 for size, atmosphere, hydrographics, okay, you get your size, and now you're going to be rolling dice and looking at these big lookup tables, which kind of filter out all the physically absurd outcomes that you could get from the original Book 3 world generation system. But, it turned out to be less than 8 pages.
Oh, wow. And what was the original source material?
I don't believe I was using anything from Mongoose yet. I think I was working entirely with my compendium of the original Little Black Books.
Oh, okay. I thought you had basically condensed your Architect of Worlds down into 8 pages.
Not quite.
But, not quite.
Okay.
John sometimes has problems with his audio.
There we go. Okay. I can hear you again now. All right. So anyway, that was, of course, while Architect of Worlds was still in the process of being designed.
Gotcha.
So I released the document for free. A lot of people have gotten some use out of it. So Ken, thinking about things he could sell, decided, okay, why don't we see if we can update that for the actual release draft of the book and anything else we've learned since then, and create a similarly short document that Traveller people could easily use in place of the standard Book 3 or Mongoose World Design systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I am currently editing, revising, and laying out that document as we speak. And I promised Ken that it will be ready for him to sell on Mayday also.
Awesome. So what's next, Ken? What else have you been up to over the past year?
So I have been working on 3 different Squadron Strike products, which we'll talk about on the other interview because that's more space combat-y stuff. But the big project was gathering up the... pardon me. The big project was gathering up the team to put together a Composer of Cultures. So I and Mark Miller have a bunch of science fiction authors that we like in common. Mark's a little older than I am, but we both really imprinted on, say, C.J. Cherry. And I've met C.J. a couple of times, and she is a fantastically smart lady. She also pretty much invented, or nearly invented, or reinvented the idea of the sociological novel. This is a novel that's told from an alien perspective. There might be a token human in there that they're frustrated by because the token human is not actually linking up with their cultures and things like that, or their biological assumptions and a few other things. Me? Let's go push you back up here, buddy.
The fact that Zoom is blurring Theoden is just a treat.
And one of my goals for science fiction RPGs, is that I wanted a system to create aliens that are as interesting as the Hani. And the Hani are pretty much the root inspiration for the Aslan in Traveller. There are some similarities, there are some differences, but I wanted something that would give you, to quote John W. Campbell, give me an alien that thinks as well as a human being, but differently. And there are things that will come to that come from the environment they grew up in, their biology, their reproductive strategies, the environment that their culture arose from, any various things that came in on that. And one of the reasons why I was really excited to bump into Jess was that they had a procedure for making biospheres and critters that arose from them. And also, you will never, ever, ever win a game of bar trivia against Jess when the subject is crocodilians. Just accept you're going to come in a distant second and enjoy the show. But since I wanted that, I needed to find people who knew things about that. CJ Cherry had a set of notes on that dated back to the early 1980s that she was kind enough to send on to me. And we have built on from that ever since, borrowing things from GURPS Uplift, a lot of work that John has done on his own, and a lot of work that Jess has done on their own. And Jess has a PhD in paleontology that they are far too modest to ever actually mention, but it comes in very handy. And yay, getting to use your doctorate in a field related to what you got it in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You should make everybody call you doctor.
I do when I'm in like professional situations with other doctors, where if one person is getting called doctor, you bet your ass I am too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I have a traveler character who's a scholar who makes everybody call them doctor. Yeah. All right. So, well, okay, Jess, tell us how did you? So you're writing this along with John, and how did you guys tackle this or divvy up the work?
So there's the introduction to the book, explaining what it's about, which Ken is doing as the editor. John has the second half, which is you've got the critter, now make the culture. And mine is the first half, which is make the critter based on whatever environment you came up with in the second book that is not going to come out until after the third book, because that's just how it panned out. Or just you make it up on the spot. You decide, I want this environment. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. What kinds of what kinds of like body structures and things do you have, like a framework of all the different components that like a standard creature would have, or is it different depending on the biome or the
I made a list of different variables of biodiversity to think about. There's far too many axes to fully account for everything, especially in a generate with dice kind of game. That way lies madness. So my goal is to give everybody like the bulk of the big parts of the framework, and then just throw information at them that they can filter through to find things that interest them. So we have limited it to animal type things. So we're not going to be trying to make plant or fungal sophonts, because that would it would get out of my field of expertise. So more errors will be likely to creep in. It would take much longer for me to research and feel confident that I was being at least mostly accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot harder to conceptualize the realism of sophonts in those groups because we don't have them. So we're sticking to animals, but allowing for things all the way from, your vertebrates that everybody defaults to invertebrates. Probably not going down to the micro scale. So, no sophont rotifers or water bears or anything like that. Okay. But we'll discuss that those are things that maybe you want to explore.
Hmm.
And cool. We'll also have an explanation for why every third starfaring species is a crab.
Ken, you're going to be writing the section of why use aliens, or in your science fiction. Well, why use aliens?
Well,
instead of just bumpy-headed humans.
Well, some cases you do just want to use bumpy-headed humans. I mean, Traveller has gotten a lot of mileage out of bumpy-headed humans, or not terribly bumpy-headed humans, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of using an alien in a setting, for fiction or for gaming, is to give a mirror to which you can show different aspects of human society, human culture, and the human experience. For example, the Klingons in Star Trek are, started out as basically being proxies for Soviets, and by Next Generation had sort of become not quite samurai, and with a penchant for opera and blood wine. And one of the things that's a real subtle take on our portal into Klingon culture in Star Trek: The Next Generation is that Worf, who is our token Klingon on the bridge of the Enterprise, I see we're having cat escalation going on.
Yes, she's making noise because she's not happy about not being the focus of my attention.
Yes. But Worf in Star Trek: The Next Generation is the viewpoint character we get most of the information on the Klingon culture through. And then we discovered that he was raised by humans as an orphan after the Khitomer massacre. And everything that Worf knows about Klingon culture is effectively the same thing as everything we know about human culture we learned from watching 78 episodes of Star Trek, the original series.
Right. So it's secondhand. Yes.
Not only is it secondhand, but he deeply believes in all of the things that Klingon culture claims that it values, and is always disappointed at how the actual Klingon Empire does not live up to those ideals, which I thought was a really fascinating and subtle take on turning their token alien into something a little more nuanced and set up. I also have a background in history. That's actually what my degree is in, and one of those RPGs I've always wanted to play is I've always wanted to play in an RPG that's set around the time of the Bronze Age collapse with actual contemporaneous religious practices. At which point you are not praying to your god and getting spells to cast. You are praying to your god to have a bountiful harvest and to make sure that those nasty people who are 50 miles away, who spell his name the wrong way, are smitten badly. A lot of religious practices. Yes, I know you're a fickle, whimsical deity. Please direct it on those nasty people 2 valleys over there and not on us. Pretty please. We had a barbecue for you. I hope you liked it. Please.
Have you found the smell pleasing?
So you can start from bumpy-headed aliens and get all the way down to our aliens are redefined a lot by their biology, which came out of the environment they grew up, they evolved in, and their culture, which is often shaped by biology. One of the things that I'll be talking about is just how weird humans actually are compared to the vast majority of chordates on this planet. Humans and bonobos are one of the handful of species on this planet that are constantly in estrus and don't have a mating season. Just as one example. You've seen my cat. My cat has a better sense of smell than I do. But as a primate, I have a much more nuanced sense of taste than he does. He is effectively lightly colorblind compared to us because we evolved in an environment where being able to identify ripe fruit was important. So we have much deeper and richer color vision than the vast majority of mammals on this planet do.
And so, Jess, did you take all of those sorts of things into account, or at least to some extent in your design?
Yeah, coming from a paleontology background, I don't have the human bias that a lot of people do. You start out with it before you get all of the education and whatnot. But I've found myself looking at human stuff after the fact, going, "What the hell is this? Why do they do it that way?" We do really weird things. There's a a lot of vertebrate paleontologists actually get jobs teaching gross anatomy to med students because we understand the evolution of why things came to be. So we can explain it instead of just parrot these facts. It's no, if you understand why, you're more likely to have it click and understand it and remember it. So things if you look at a shark, for example, your basic fish shape, a lot of them their hearts are up in their necks. That was normal. We that went on land ended up doing weird things where our hearts start up in here during development, but then they descend into our chest. And there's this nerve that comes out here that innervates some muscles in our necks. But as the heart descends, it gets caught below the heart and gets pulled down. So it comes out here, goes down, and comes back up. And you explaining that to med students, it's like, this is an example of why humans are really weird. Like, it's so weird that we walk upright. It's so weird that we're so good at throwing things. It's so weird that we've got fingerprints. Like, fingerprints are not normal in the animal world, but there's reasons for it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And so you try to account for all of these things within like your definition of the society that these entities might create because of their physiology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a big part of paleontology is that you're not studying what is here now. You're studying a big chunk of time. So how did part A come from part B? What was the process? What was the reason? What could have interrupted it along the way? So understanding the process is just as important as understanding the pattern. So you got to take both of those things into account.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Ken, let's switch gears a little bit since Matt's on a time limit and talk about some of his contributions to what's going on there at Ad Astra.
I mean, I can hop in because I had a couple of thoughts while Ken and Jess were talking, and
sure,
one of the things that I want to emphasize is that it's not just sentient life, and I'm really looking forward to that middle book that's going to be coming out third. We'll worry about the numbering later, but I'm really excited. Like I had mentioned, we have a habitable world around Alpha Mensae. One of the first things I am going to try, if you ask me, is can I generate the natural radioactive nuclear fusion reactors that are made out of fungus that are on Alpha Mensae. The reason I say that is because, again, back to my thing about digital archaeology, I read pages upon pages of emails and notes and documents of communications with people who were very good at their science and very good at their job saying, yeah, this could happen, wherein you have not sentient, but not entirely idiotic, mobile fungus that generates natural radioactive waste on the surface of the planet. It's a wonderful place to live. You should go visit as often as you can.
No, it sounds like a good place to be from.
And that's the things that, even without aliens, there's a lot of things in the 10 world settings that none of our 10 habitable worlds, with maybe one exception, are perfect. And that's a very important distinction to make. There are always trade-offs. Not all are hellscapes, but there's always, the risk of essentially Stone Age hive mind rock caterpillars attacking your airbase and destroying your only way out of your settlement, which is a big problem for the Chinese majority planet in our setting. The other thing I wanted to touch base is Ken mentioned you throw aliens into your story as a mirror. And I touched on two things. I recently finished a piece of fiction that the longer Earth is gone, because, spoiler, if you've never played Attack Vector Tactical, Earth is gone. We have probably lost it forever. And as a result, the colonies are now going to have to live on their own. This has knock-on effects. Everything on a starship is measured in, for acceleration purposes, 1 standard G. Not a single one of the remaining 10 worlds has that gravity. They are measuring it based on a planet they will never go to. One of the characters I have desperately wants to be German. He'll never be able to go to Germany. And so like Worf, he's essentially existing in this twilight period where he only knows what it is to be German through documents and stories and the culture he had. And so in many ways, these characters start to become as alien as a Klingon or a Romulan or anything you'd find in any other sci-fi setting, because they can't experience the native culture anymore. It's gone. And the longer they cling to it, the more ridiculous and warped it's probably going to become, which from a writing standpoint is an exciting place for me to be in, because you can take that a lot of places and tell a lot of good stories with that.
Mr. Francois, why are you dressed like that on the bridge? It's my lederhosen, sir. It's the traditional garb of my people.
It's the traditional frigate captain uniform. So
when I was working on the Honor Harrington product line with David Weber, I tried to convince him to make, since he hadn't actually defined what the Andromani uniform looked like, I tried to convince him that the Andromani uniform was the properly Germanic Hawaiian print shirt with different print patterns, with different print patterns to show your particular rank and section of the crew.
I feel like some of my German friends would be screaming if they heard this.
Well, from as far away from Earth as Gustav Andermann's hellhole of a planet, which is majority Chinese but speaks German, is from, Hawaii and Germany are on the same pixel.
Where did the 10 worlds come from? What's the origination of them? I mean, some are real or based on real stars, or like what exactly is the setting there?
Well, they're certainly based on the real near solar neighborhood at the stellar level. But I believe when the project got started, we had almost no information about exoplanets yet. So they were almost entirely.
So you've been refining these over time as you go.
Yeah, all of the stars are based on position and spectral class. All of that are genuine positions in the sky. One of the things in the setting that dictates travel lanes is the distance between those stars. So, it's not like we've created a arbitrary grid to make travel interesting. But like I said, as time has gone on, we've discovered more stars. When the 10 worlds was initially created, Alpha Mensi was a singular system. It's now a binary star. So it's exciting that I look up things to run it through Architect of Worlds and say, oh, well, that's interesting.
While I was writing Architect and testing interim versions on real world stellar data, I would constantly, this happened many times, I would look at the known information about a given real world star, generate a planetary system for it, then literally a week or two later, I would go back and, oh crap, somebody published a paper.
Whoops.
And gee, now we know about exoplanets there, and what I just built doesn't match. That happened more times than I can count over the past, decade or so. It's
where are you getting
really a great time to be an astronomer.
Yeah, does NASA provide this information? Like, how do you have to be a member of different kinds of astronomy listservs or things? I mean, like,
well, there are stellar catalogs that have been for a long time for nearby space. Probably the oldest one was the Gliese catalog, which was published decades ago and was based purely on photographic evidence. The thing to remember is over the past 10, 15 years, the ESA in particular has put two space telescopes up. First, the Hipparcos telescope, and more recently, the Gaia telescope, whose sole job was to build maps of as much of the galaxy as possible. These are astrometric devices. They basically take pictures of the whole sky repeatedly, and you look and see how the points of light that they pick up have moved over the course of an Earth year, and that gives you position information. Hipparcos had thousands of stars. The Gaia data corpus has billions with a B of stars and other objects that have been mapped now. We actually have a decent map of a few percent of the Milky Way galaxy. which doesn't sound like much, but it's an amazing accomplishment. And the thing is, both NASA and the ESA, the European Space Agency, they make all their results free. You know where to look. Anybody can lay hands on them. Anybody can do the analysis for them. For example,
we haven't actually like seen an exoplanet firsthand, right? This is all by gravitational inference.
No, there have been exoplanets which have been imaged. They tend to be very young exoplanets that are still in the process of formation and therefore are still glowing in the infrared, so telescopes like the James Webb can see them.
They're fluffy Jupiters.
Yeah, basically warm young Jupiters. Most of the exoplanets we've detected, we've inferred by a couple of different methods. There's the radial velocity method, which is we see their primary star wibbling back and forth slightly, so we can infer something's tugging on it as it goes around its orbit. The other method is, okay, this planet actually transits in front of the primary star, so we see this little tiny dip in the star's light curve. And using both those, occasionally we actually get data from both methods for the same exoplanet. That doesn't happen too often.
You say the chances of seeing an exosystem edge on to see
it's
the,
not very
light
likely.
change. That's very But I guess when you consider how many systems there are out there, that number goes up.
Last time I looked, which was last fall, because I was getting ready to give a talk at a local science fiction convention about this, we had over 5,000 pretty well confirmed exoplanets, which sounds like a lot, but the interesting thing is, I think at this point, there's a data set that I've gotten hold of. There's a specific paper that does a survey of the 10 parsec solar neighborhood. That is everything out to 10 parsecs from Sol.
Which happens to be the volume that we use for the 10 worlds, by the way.
Gotcha.
And they basically have built this catalog on the basis of the Gaia data. Therefore, it's the most recent and the most complete. Last I saw, I think they found 339 star systems, including some itty-bitty cool ground dwarf systems that are almost impossible to detect. And of those, maybe about 10% are known to have exoplanets, which probably tells us that the other 90% have them too. It's just that they're not positioned so that we can use either of our two methods to detect them. There's a lot of real estate out there.
Which leads into a 10 world setting detail that will make John look absolutely and utterly jealous. One of the things that was built in the 10 worlds setting very early on in the timeline is the JOSI, which is the Jovian Orbital Scale Interferometer, which is a cluster of space telescopes in both of the leading and trailing Trojan points that are laser linked across 5.2 AU to form a very long baseline interferometer.
Yeah, you're doing aperture synthesis at that point. You basically have a telescope with a lens the size of the solar system. Yep.
Interesting.
And you could probably see somebody playing golf on a planet 10 parsecs away with that kind of resolution. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, give it time. We'll have them.
Right. Matt, let me ask you quickly, kind of switching over to attack vector tactical for a second. So are you the one responsible for writing the attack vector scenarios?
Not as much. So I'm, as the line developer, in association with Ken and some of the other folks that work on Attack Vector, we generally put together for example, we've got Shipbook 2 coming out, and we kind of have a through line of plots and how we want to advance the settings. But we have a couple of really talented people. One is our lead playtester, Sierra. She created a lot of the scenarios from some of it, again, was that digital archaeology I go back to, but filling in the gaps and where we had to desperately change things to modernize it. We rely on her expertise quite a bit. And there's kind of a collaborative effort to make sure that we're telling the story we as a central team want to tell as the setting, and rely on Sierra and her playtesting to make sure that those scenarios are fun as well as somewhat plausible. One of the challenges in the 10 worlds being a hard sci-fi setting is you can't get next door very quickly unless you're in the exact right spot at the exact right time. It can be a journey to get two fleets together to fight at the right time, and making sure that that's part of it is part of the great work that Sierra has done in crafting a set of scenarios, both in the third edition, we did a little cleanup there, and in the upcoming shipbook too.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I was going to ask how you came up with scenarios, but it sounds like everybody chips in, and then you kind of put it together into a viable thing.
And on the squadron strike side of things, when I do scenarios, one of the things I look for are interesting asymmetries. I get a matchup of 2 or 3 ships that I like. I try to put a situation in where at the start of the scenario, everybody's making a decision. You can't just sit there and wait and see what happens. There's a scenario that we are currently running a playtest of that would be running tonight called Gauntlet for one of the upcoming Squadron Strike products, where I love to describe it as it is a 3-player scenario where 2 players are nominally on the same side, and every single player looks at their initial position and goes, "Oh, man, this sucks. Okay, that's a bad choice. That's a bad choice. That's a horrible choice. Let's go back and figure out which of those 2 is least bad." And all 3 players are grumbling about this at the start of the scenario. It's great.
You monster.
You're a monster. All right, cool. Let's see. Jess, tell us about crocodiles and body plans and all the way nature has made manipulative appendages. Oops, you're muted.
Jess, you are currently muted.
Crocodilians are actually a very good example of body plans evolution, because everybody's like, oh yeah, they've been around since the time of the dinosaurs. They haven't changed. They're living fossil. No, they're not. My dissertation was all about how alligatorines, just this tiny group within the larger crocodiliformes, how they have changed since their inception. If somebody calls something a living fossil, it's because they're ignorant of the changes that happened, or because they're being biased and cherry picking what they're looking at.
Or they're deliberately trolling you.
Or they're deliberately trolling. But usually it's one of those other 2. It's more innocent. So crocodilians, for example, the reason people think that they haven't changed since the time of the dinosaurs is because different lineages within the larger crocodiliformes just kept evolving back into this semi-aquatic ambush predator shape that we see today. But like the first animals that had that weren't even crocodiliformes. They were something outside of the group that contains crocodiles and birds. We used to think they were a thing on the croc line, but now we think they're outside. And you could even go back farther. There's giant amphibians that do the same thing. But they just kept evolving back into this niche because it's such a good niche to be in for some reason. So people see that and they're like, oh, it's the same thing. Like, it's not, but you don't know what details to look for if that's not your shtick. Like, if you're used to looking at humans because you don't study this stuff, you're like, I mean, it's shaped the same. And whereas those of us who study are like, no, these 2 bones in the skull are oriented in this different direction, or no, look, the nares are like 1 hole versus 2 holes. Like, there's a lot of little details that you don't think they matter if you don't know the subject.
One of these
So,
days, cats are going to evolve into a semi-aquatic ambush predator.
yeah, like look at cats even. Like all the people who are like, oh, it's a cougar. Like, no, that's a house cat. Like they've got the same ish body plan, and people confuse them all the time because of that. You just look at the silhouette instead of the pattern of the fur or whatnot. But I have lost track because you hit one of my talking points that I used to rant about in grad school. Can you remind me what the question was?
Well, we were just talking about, I guess how Ken wanted me to ask you about how crocodiles, I guess, are optimized for their niche.
Right. Okay. So we were talking about different types of limbs and different functions that different limbs hold. And crocodilians, we don't know about like the outside modern crown crocodilia, which is the group that contains all the modern stuff. We don't know what range of like did they gallop? Did they crawl? Like some of them you can look at and be like, they probably did this, but we don't know the full range for sure the way we do with the modern stuff. You look at the modern ones, they are able to walk upright. It's called high walking. It's very slow. It's very regal looking. It conserves energy for over long distance travel. So like alligators will use it to get from one pond to another when their pond that there was and was drying up, or they need to go to another pond to find a mate or something like that. And then they've got the sprawling posture, which is actually not ancestral to them. The upright posture is ancestral to them, which they use to like just slide back into the water. Because why would you stand up if you can just slide on your belly? Be lazy. A lot of evolution is how lazy can I be? Let's do that. It's all about conserving energy. And then the semi-upright posture that they are often seen in, which is like arms out like this. So different postures, different modes of like, are they running animals? Are they cursorial? Are they walking animals? Like there's a lot of crocodiliformes in the past that were cursorial. They were running like crocs with hooves and like dagger teeth running about chasing small horses. Like those were a thing. And what you are doing with them is a huge driver, what kind of limb type you have. And then that's going to influence, once you're a sophont, what can you do? So as primates, we were in the trees. We had to grab onto things. And that's why we're really good at grabbing onto tools, because we were grabbing onto branches. But if you've got something that started out as like a horse, you've got one finger. You can't grab with one finger very well. So that's going to influence like your material culture. It's going to influence what accommodations you need to do things. Like look at the
Things
disability world. What
button.
kind of things do we have to do to change different able bodies?
And
or not change things so that differently abled bodies can do the same things that other people do.
Right.
And for the obligatory Traveller game reference, what do you mean the crocodile dropped out of the branches and got Smith?
Alligators do sometimes climb trees. They're not good at it, but
I'm just picturing an alligator, lurking in the branches like a panther, waiting for prey to walk under and then dropping.
I'm more terrified of coconut crabs. I think they'll split your coconut if one lands on your coconut. They're like giant hermit crabs the size of small dogs. And they have claws meant for cracking open coconuts. And so, yeah. They don't make a good hat.
Yeah, but if you had a sophont like that, they're not going to be needing things like scissors or hammers as much as we will.
Right. Good point.
Just like cats think we're weird for putting on all of these clothes.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Well, we're still on the topic of aliens. Ken, tell us about how aliens in novels vary from aliens in other media.
So when you have an alien in a novel, you have the chance to have part of that story told from the alien's perspective. I touched on this earlier about C.J. Cherryh inventing the sociology novel.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Ford, John M. Ford is the name he was published under, was also somebody who kind of wrote in this little niche. What I'd like to say is that in timelines close to ours, Mike and CJ met each other at a convention, became platonic best friends, and collaborated on novels. And in 99 out of 100 of those timelines, those novels were commercial disasters because, well, their writing quirks reinforced each other. And, you know, if you aren't really into those writing quirks, they're incomprehensible messes. And at about 1 in 100 of those timelines, they managed to avoid their respective writing quirk. They managed to heterodyne and make everything work really well. And I really want to have some of those novels, and unfortunately, I'll never see them. Mike Ford passed away almost 20 years ago in 2006. But in a television series, your aliens are pretty much limited to what you can do with a mocap suit now, and it used to be what you can do with an actual actor wearing a costume back in the day. I mean, if you remember Doctor Who aliens, well, look, we've got 20 pounds. Send the intern down to the home supply store and oh hey, we still got that bucket of paint from last week.
Yes, bring back some paper mache.
Paper mache? You think we can actually afford paper mache? This is the BBC we're talking about. What do you think this is? Lucasfilm?
Well, it's one reason why, for example, live-action Star Trek aliens always tend to look like humans with lumpy foreheads. Mm-hmm. And animated Star Trek, often you get a lot more variety because...
That's true.
You can draw things that you could never practically do on camera.
Right. And that's also something that they excelled at on Farscape because, you know, they're running Jim Henson's Muppet Company and they can make that's the first show I saw that had non-human aliens all the time, you know, in the backgrounds and stuff.
Babylon 5 in the first 2 seasons had a crime boss that was an insectoid puppet. And that you only ever really saw a little bit hither, thither, and yon. And Babylon 5 did an awful lot of work with prosthetics. The joke is that everybody recognized Peter Jurassic, the actor who played Londo Mollari, but nobody recognized Andreas Katsulas because Jakar was, wearing 5 pounds of prosthetic rubber on his face and still managed to emote nicely with it. But basically the less visual that you need to have your medium, the more opportunities you have to work with the psychology of the aliens and to some extent their biology. And there's also a continuum of what your audience will accept and appreciate. Humanoid aliens are much, much easier for most readers, participants in your setting to work with. There's a reason why on the western edge of the Third Imperium map, we have the Aslan, the Jodani, and the Vargur. The Jodani are alternate humans with psionic powers and tend to think that the NBA is a really neat sport played by midgets. The Aslan are basically porting the Hani over into the Third Imperium, and they're upright bipedal lions. The Vargur are basically upright bipedal coyotes or dogs. Meanwhile, over on the eastern frontier, we have the Kree,
wolves.
Yeah. Meanwhile, over on the eastern frontier, we have the Kree, who are genocidally territorial herbivore centaurs. We have the Hivers, who are at least on par with the Third Imperium, and Well, everybody, I'll let you try to describe hivers for our paleontologists here, because it's been a while since I've had to try to describe hivers.
Me?
You.
Yeah,
I'm no
I think it
hiver
would be
expert.
fair to say that hivers do not match any prominent clade in Earth biology.
No, maybe like a starfish kind of thing, or like a worm.
How do you spell this?
Superficially.
Hivers,
HIVER. They basically are a 5-sided creature with, or maybe 6-sided, and they have four appendages and like a head appendage and a tail appendage, but they're hard to tell all the appendages. They all look the same.
And the tail appendage is also their reproductive organ.
Right. And they
So
have
like
eye
a squid
stalks around
cotyledon.
like an open mouth. Yeah.
So the symmetry and the open mouth sound, it sounds very echinoderm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of.
And in the lore, they communicate by moving their little petals of their tendrils and changing color, and so they have to go around. Like if they're going to communicate with other people, they usually have like a voice box that interprets what their movements are.
Okay.
So yeah, they're weird and alien, and that's one of the things that I liked about Traveller was aliens like that. You know, I've seen like Kazinti, and that's how I knew about like
the Aslan?
lion people, yeah, and then dog people. I just figure that follows, and yeah, but these hiver things were, very weird, and I really liked them. I guess the droin they're kind of like slee stack people, so that's hard to describe. But you were going to say, Ken, about like how Mark Miller decided where to place aliens and what types of aliens to put there.
Yeah. So Mark Miller put the easier to understand, more humanistic aliens on one side of the Imperium and the weirder aliens on the other side of the Imperium.
I see.
And then did a nice inversion of the Solomani as a group of crazy fascists,
Mm-hmm.
rather than making the Earth humans be the default good guys.
Right.
But Traveller is very much a human dominated with little itty bits of alien culture fed into the mix for a setting.
Right. So, John, I heard you're working on a project of turning Civilization into a solo play.
Kind of. For Composer of Cultures, of course, Ken's writing the introduction. Jess is writing what we're calling the biological evolution game, although how game structured it'll end up being remains to be seen. I'm writing what I'm explicitly calling the cultural evolution game. The idea is at the beginning, you have a sophont species with very simple material culture, roughly equivalent to archaic Homo sapiens. And using a handful of 6-sided dice and a single ordinary deck of playing cards and a lot of paper to take notes with, you can generate the cultural history of your sophont species, their psychological development, their cultural development, the appearance and disappearance of empires, the rise and fall of religions or philosophical systems. It really does kind of feel like a Sid Meier civilization game on your tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying very carefully to design it so that you can end up getting as much detail as you want. So, for example, if you really want to go whole hog and start with the Paleolithic era and work your sophonts all the way up to the interstellar stage, that may take you a while. But you're going to have so many details that you can work with for fiction or for game setting or whatever you want that you'll never run out of material to work with.
Mm-hmm.
if you don't care about a lot of the earlier eras of their development, you just want to figure out what they did in the couple centuries before the interstellar era, you can do that, and it'll take you a lot less time. And once we've designed all these systems, we intend to also produce a short section which is like, okay, I need interesting aliens for my game tonight. Can I sit down and, using the material in this book, even if I'm not going through every last detail of both halves of it, pick and choose and get myself a quirky, interesting, distinctive alien that I could use for this session. So we're hoping that you can sort of, zoom in and out to the level of detail you want. And with the Cultural Evolution game, that's very much going to be a design idea.
That sounds really fun. So Ken,
I have fun with it. I've had playtesters who have this whole series of books, one of the reactions we've gotten from Architect of Worlds is there are people who go, this is really cool. I love it. And they will sit down and they want to work with all the different working parts and play with it. And they build spreadsheets and whatnot. Right. And then you get people who look at it and go, why on earth would anybody want to do any of this? Because, there's two different schools of thought when it comes to world building.
Right. Well, those people aren't your market.
They're not our market. Yep.
And
but that's okay.
Yeah.
But I suspect all three books in the series, once we end up producing all of them, are going to be kind of like that. If you are into really detailed world building, this is going to be right up your alley.
Awesome.
Yeah, you haven't really lived until you died in character creation. Your culture hasn't really lived until it's been wiped out 14 times with my random card draws.
Yeah, there's definitely a switch on the Cultural Evolution game that will allow for great filters. Your Sophon species may suddenly decide to take the extinction road because things didn't break its way.
Or it did break their way, and they got complacent.
That could lead to the downfall as well. So Ken, I think we've pretty much touched on everything that we talked about earlier. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we wrap this up? You got any plans for the next over the next year, or anything new coming out at Mayday that you want to tell people about?
So we will have abbreviated architect for Mayday, which will be of interest to the Traveller players. God willing, the creek don't rise and nothing goes wrong, we will have Attack Vector Shipbook 2. We have Attack Vector 3rd edition out now. I am in the process of rewriting tutorials for Squadron Strike 3rd edition. One of the tutorials I'm rewriting is the chunk of the tutorial in the Traveller one that covers on missiles to update it to the new rules. But that, with any luck, will be out by early May or the end of April, early May. I'm literally on the last 4 pages of the core box set tutorial and then doing the parallel changes in the Traveller one. I have Exile Stars with a novel-length piece of fiction that I am finishing off in between these other things. Then I've got to get Newton's Cradle done before my audience comes and tries to hunt me down and murder me. And I've gotten the pipeline started on 2 other Squadron Strike supplements, one of which is Ringgate, which is, as the short form, imagine the two-slit interference pattern between H.P. Lovecraft, and I should probably actually be sitting over my camera, can see me, between H.P. Lovecraft and Arthur C. Clarke. And the other one,
Cthulhu?
Yeah, kind of.
Right.
The basic premise is that in the early 22nd century, we discovered an artifact orbiting Uranus and managed to turn it on and managed to find a universe where all the distances are much shorter than in ours. And one of the hypotheses about this universe, first of all, you can't actually make the gates that go into it from our side of it, but you can build them, send them through into it, and punch through from their side into ours. And the argument that has been made a couple of times is that our universe was basically created as an energy extraction mechanism by whomever was in this universe. And that dark energy, the Einsteinian constant that's driving universal expansion at different rates at different times. It's effectively the mind tailings of their energy extraction process.
Interesting.
Kind of Arthur C. Clarke and Cthulhu in that, it's not that they're hostile to us. It's just that we're rats in their cable runs.
Right. So, Ken, where can people find your titles or get in touch with you?
AdAstraGames.com.
All right. Cool. Well, I guess we've come to the end of our interview then. My guests today have been Ken Burnside, Matthew Francois, John Ziegler, and Jess Miller Camp. Thank you all for coming and sitting for this interview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
And thank you, fellow travelers. Until next time, happy traveling. Want to build better sci-fi worlds? Check out Ad Astra Games. Scan the QR code, use the link on screen, or find it in the description below. If you enjoyed this interview, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss future episodes. Now tell me, what kind of star system will you build first? Earth-like or something truly alien? Let me know in the comments. A quick thank you to my patrons. Your support helps make events like Mayday and interviews like this possible. If you'd like to support the channel and get behind-the-scenes access, early content, and more, you can join us on Patreon. And to everyone already supporting, thank you. I truly appreciate it. Check out one of these videos next, and I'll see you in the next star system.